Do India have a few issues with their top order? That's one of the subjects we're talking about on Ask Hoggy. Well, welcome to Ask Hoggy. I've got 10 questions, so let's not muck around and beat around the bush. Artel Burrell asked the first question, and this is about Rohit Sharma. How well do you think Rohit Sharma will fare against England in the upcoming Test series? He looked in quite good nick in the World Test Championship. Well, if we look at his stats, when he's in India, he averages 79. He's got 700s and 650s on Indian soil. But when he goes away, he only averages 27. And he's only had 650s in those 39 innings away from Indian soil. But then we go to England and it even gets worse. He averages 24 there in the 4 innings that he's played. So let's look at the dismissals he's had in England. Moeen Ali, first up there, that was his first dismissal. But James Anderson, the swing bowler from England that he's going to face, Kyle Jamieson and Tim Southey. Now, if we look at all those bowlers, they execute good swinging deliveries. They're able to move the ball away from Rohit Sharma and make him chase, and then bowl that in-swinger and attack the stumps. So that's one of Rohit Sharma's deficiencies. I think he's going to have a few issues against the likes of Broad and Anderson, especially opening the batting with the Duke ball or against the Duke ball. So I'll be very surprised if he has a big impact in this series. Look, we know how good he is, and this has been one of his kryptonites in his game. At Test level is performing away from India. And England, for an Indian batsman, is probably the hardest conditions to adjust to. So he's had plenty of time over there. If he's going to do it, it's this time. And I think this will define him as a Test cricketer, whether he goes up there as one of the greats or whether he's just one of the best Test cricketers that India have had in the opening batting department on Indian soil. So it's a big series for Rohit Sharma. Absolutely love him. No critical, I'm not being overly critical there. That's what the stats say. And, I look at his technique and that's the way it is. Okay, let's go to Rita Rana Ghosh. How are you going? Shubman Gill has been ruled out of the Test series against England, and he has played well in the last few tests. With KL Rahul getting back in his form, will he be able to make an impact or a comeback as first Test opener for India very soon? Look, I think Rahul should be making sure that he's going to be prepared to make an impact in this series. I don't think India are going to give more than 2 tests to the top 3 if they don't perform. So Agarwal, if he's going to open with Rohit Sharma, and then you've got Pujara out 3, if one of those 3 batsmen isn't standing up and delivering in the first 2 test matches, KL Rahul has to come in. But if I was an Indian selector and I'm looking at that top order, I think KL Rahul has slightly got a better technique than Agarwal against the swinging delivery. But you want Agarwal up the top there because of that aggressive nature. If he gets them off to a flyer, it makes it easier in that middle order and puts pressure back on the Indian bowlers. So for me, I think Rahul will be on the sidelines. But if those top 3 don't perform, and Pujara, he hasn't looked too good over in England either, Rahul might play in front of those 3 players after the second Test match. Okay, Pragatish. I hope I've said that right. Thanks very much for joining me. Do you think the Indian batting collapse at the 3rd one-day international against Sri Lanka signifies the value of at least one experienced proven middle-order batsman in the lineup? You had Munish Pandey in the middle order, and it was a big opportunity for him to take and push the likes of Suryakumar, Ishan Kishan getting an opportunity over there out of contention with the 50-over games coming up in the future. But he didn't. So someone like a Suryakumar has proven himself and delivered, and I think you might see him playing a lot more in the main team in the 50-over format. But You've got experience there as well. You've got Hardik Pandya, who was given an opportunity to go from 7 to 6, so batting a little bit higher up in the batting order, given a little bit of responsibility, and he didn't stand up in those moments, those key moments as well. So India will look at that and go, right, is Hardik going to be the full fit or an addition that we can bat out number 6 as a genuine all-rounder? Not quite yet. So, those opportunities were thrown away by particular people, and that's what this particular series is about. It's a second 11 for India, and it was an opportunity for these players to stand up under pressure, and Munish and Hardik Pandya didn't quite deliver what the selectors would be looking for in those particular roles. Suryakumar Yadav did, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that particular player. So I don't think we should be worrying about that middle order collapse against Sri Lanka, really, because the team had changed a lot too from the first two teams that they played. Okay, next question from Sane Kamble. I'm hoping I've pronounced that one right too. Thanks very much for joining me, Sane. According to you, which 4 teams can qualify for the semi-finals in the 2021 T20 World Cup? Okay, let's look at the first group. I think it's going to be India and New Zealand from that particular group. You've got Pakistan and Afghanistan also in that 4. The way that Pakistan played against England in the T20s, they looked out of sorts. They look as though they don't have a strong middle order. Afghanistan, look, they're rising strongly, and I've got a funny feeling that they could upset all 3 of these teams and slip into that semi-final spot. But look, if I'm looking at the stats and the performances over the last couple of years, I just like India and New Zealand in that group to go through the semi-finals. The next group, we've got England, South Africa, Australia, and the West Indies. I just think the West Indies got a good power game, which is very hard to stop in the short format. So this is where they're probably the most dominant in their brand of cricket. So I think they'll get into the semi-finals. And I think England, with their aggressive cricket too, will outplay the likes of South Africa and Australia. I think South Africa have dropped off the radar. They don't have the depth, and I'm worried about Australia's middle order. They worried that they just rely so heavily on the likes of Maxwell, Warner, Finch out the top of the order, as well as Smith, and I don't know whether Smith is there. And I don't think the form of those particular players in the top 4 as well gives me, how can you put it, gives me confidence that they're going to go through in the particular tournament. So, I've said it, India, New Zealand, England, and the West Indies. That's a good question too. Pratam Hingu, how are you going? And I'm also going to put Shrujan in this one here. There's 2 questions. Do you think Suryakumar Yadav can be considered for the T20 World Cup? And who do you think will be the X factor for India in the World Cup? So I think Suryakumar Yadav is definitely going to be in the World Cup. I think Virat Kohli will be opening with Rohit Sharma. You'll have Suryakumar Yadav coming in at number 3. I just think his expansive game, the range of shots that he's got, he's unorthodox as well, so he can play different ram shots on both the leg and offside, but he can also attack you, use your feet. And I just think he's going to be the difference in this particular tournament. If he stands out and puts the bowlers off with that array of shots, I think he's going to set the tournament up for India. So for me, I think Suryakumar Yadav is the man for India, and I think he's the man to watch in the T20 World Cup this year. I think he might be man of the series. That's a big call from so far out. Okay, Naveen Singh, your thoughts on the 100? I'm absolutely loving it. I think it adds a different perspective of the game. I like the fact that you can bowl 10 balls from one end, but you have overs of 5. Remember, well, we're a bit too young for this, but at the start of world cricket, I think they started with 4 over overs, and then they went to 5, and then a few teams went to 6, some went to 8. So it's not something that hasn't been used in cricket, 5-over spells. But the other thing that I like about it, that if you bowl a good 5-over spell, you get a couple of wickets, then the captain can bowl you for another 5 balls straight up, so that you can keep the momentum in your favour. So it gives a bit of an advantage to the bowling team to take advantage of when they're on top, and it doesn't allow the batting team to get an opportunity to change that momentum and attack another bowler in that particular stage. I like that aspect of it, and I like the short sharpness, the quickness of it. It's over and out very quickly, and I'm just loving it, and I'm loving the enthusiastic way that the players are playing it, and even I'm loving the women's game. The women's game is just exceptional in this format, so I think it's a good move from the ECB. I was sceptical of it at the start, but seeing it in action, I think it's got legs. And then the next question, cricket must be part of the Olympics, but why is it not happening is my question to you, Hoggy. And this is Ashok Kalikai. Now, this is a good question. Talking about the 100, I think if we're going to have cricket in the Olympics, I think it's got to be the 100 format. I think this is where the 100 can be played out international level. And not just in the Olympics, I think we can bring it back into the Commonwealth Games as well. With the 100, it's short, sharp, it's got a huge time constraint that you've got to get it over and done with in a certain amount of time. And I think it's a game that can be played within 2 hours, 2.5 hours, which is going to be a lot quicker than the T20 game. And that's what you need in an Olympic contest. You don't want those games draining out to 4-hour periods. You want it quick, short, sharp, in and out, and then you can play a massive tournament over 12 days. I think the Olympic Games goes for, and probably the same for the Commonwealth Games. So, yeah, good innovation there from ECB. Well done, you finally got it right for once. Neil Korea. How are you going, Neil Korea? I think that's it. Well, could be Nell as well. Ask Hoggy, how will teams like South Africa, Sri Lanka be able to regain their lost legacy? Look, this is a very good question. Getting the right people in the boards that haven't got a hidden agenda for themselves. It's all about the cricket, what's best for cricket. I think that's one that they've got to do. The administrators, they've got to make sure they've got the right people in place for the right jobs. They've got to market the game well, but also they've got to have a good structure coming through the ranks. So they've got to invest in grassroots cricket and make sure they've got legends of the game that are going out to schools that can really pump the energy of the game up as well. So they've got a lot of work to do, and this is what happens when politics gets in the way. Sometimes it can really take the game backward a couple of steps. So they've got both teams or both countries have got a lot to do to turn things around. So basically getting the right people in the right roles, and I think with Sri Lanka as well, I think they've got to look at their first class system as well. Probably look at having teams in certain areas and making sure that you've got the right amount of teams for a strong competition in that particular region as well. So I think both teams can turn it around. I think they've got the players to do it. But it's going to take a bit of time, and once you've selected a core of 15 players, of youngsters, stick with them for 2 or 3 years and take a huge risk on those particular players. So pick the talent and take a huge risk on those particular players. If someone else has been outstanding over that 2-year period that has proven to be an X factor, we'll bring them in as well. That's a good question, Nell. Rowan Yeoli, how you going? Your players to watch out for in the upcoming England-India Test Series. Okay, England first. I want to see James Anderson, how he goes. His body continues to motor along. He's out that 40-year age bracket, and he still looks fit as a fiddle. So he's one that I want to look out for. Ollie Robinson. Played one test match, then got suspended for something that he did 10 years ago. I don't want to go over it, but I thought it was pretty harsh for him to be dealt with such an issue that happened 10 years ago. He should have played the next test match. He missed out. I hope he gets another opportunity because I thought he showed the goods there to perform out this level, and on English conditions I think he can really trouble the Indian batsmen, so hopefully he gets another opportunity. I just want to see someone come back from such adverse or such controversy, so just want to see him lift. Zach Crawley in the batting department, there's been a lot of talk about him. He's fallen off the form, or fallen out of form lately, so see how he turns things around. And when we come to India, I'm really interested in Pant. Can he continue that explosive role that he plays down the lower order against a swinging Duke ball? And remember, when the Duke ball doesn't swing as much later on in the innings, this is where Pant's going to have a huge impact. So making sure that he bats the majority of his time against an old ball. And I'd like to see how he goes against the second new ball as well, with the ball coming onto the bat there. So that's something that I'm looking out for. Shami, I just think he's the pick of the Indian bowlers in English conditions, and he proved that in the World Test Championship. And for me, the other person I'm really looking out for is when Rahul gets an opportunity. Is he going to take it with both hands? He's a quality batsman. He's been in and out of the Indian team. He's probably been one of the unluckier players not to get more of a consistent role in the Indian team. So for me, those three Indian players are the ones I'm looking out for. And as we said out the top, Rohit Sharma, how is he going to do or go on English conditions? That is the big question for me, and that is one player, or probably the player that I'm most looking forward to seeing, his adaptability on English conditions. Now, thanks very much for joining me, and thanks very much for getting those questions in. 10 questions, and it went for 16 minutes, so I hope you like this video, and I'll see you in a couple of days for another Hogs vlog. Thanks for joining me, guys. Have a good day.